Not too long ago, I did a small rant video about things that have been bugging me in the watch world. You really seem to enjoy that video, but one or two of you asked, sure, those are things that bug you, Mike, but tell us about things that you like. Can you do a similar video, but with positives? I think I can, and this is the video. 15 things I really like in the watch world at this moment. Let's dive in. Quick release bracelets. Easy adjustment bracelets aren't as important to me as they are to other people. For whatever reason, my wrists never really swell up that much in summer, so regardless of temperature, my watches once sized always seem to fit me. I do, however, really like quick release bracelet systems, but there's one particular style that I like more than any other. And that's where I have to briefly touch on something that I don't like. So the Cartier Santos, it's a fabulous watch and it has a quick release system that I don't like. And what don't I like about it? I don't like the fact that it's a proprietary system and there are no spring bars. You are super limited in terms of options. That's why I like systems like the one you'll see on an IWC Pilot Mark 20 or a Formex Reef. Here you have a solid, dependable and sturdy release system that allows you to quickly take out of the bracelet and easily thread a NATO onto the watch. The best system potentially is also the simplest one, which is a spring bar that has a little handle to release the strap from the spring bars. It allows you to quickly switch straps and you only really need to find your spring bar tool when you need to put on a NATO. I love that. Interchangeable bezels. To my knowledge, only Formex does this. At first I thought it was silly until I tried it. A bezel change can massively change the look of your watch and can really transform your outfit. You just buy an extra bezel, pop off the old one and throw on a different one. I think it's an incredibly cool, enthusiast-focused innovation that is not only fun, but also useful. This kind of customization is a huge plus to me. Huge warranties. I'm not always that impressed with Meta certifications. It's a cool certification, but some of the tolerances they test for are not that meaningful to me. This is where some of you will say that they are very important, and that's cool. They are for you. For me, in my purchasing decisions, it's more marketing than value add. But a 5-year or more warranty is a certificate of approval from the manufacturer. I know that you sometimes have to read the fine print as to the limitations that apply, but a manufacturer that's confident enough in their product to offer you 5 or more years says a lot. That's meaningful to me. Additional straps. I love brands that sell you a watch on a steel bracelet and throw in an extra rubber strap or a NATO. Seiko does this sometimes, Omega does it sometimes, Tudor does it every now and again. Rolex doesn't, if you were wondering. There's something about the customer orientation and the enthusiast orientation of a brand that says to its customers, hey, enjoy your watch on a NATO as well. It's not a huge cost driver, but the brands show that you can personalize the way you use your watch. And it stands in stark contrast to something like Rolex, where the cases are milled in a way that they're not really intended to be worn on anything else other than the strap or bracelet that they come with. I'm going to have to stop talking about straps, but Omega has the best NATO straps in the business. They are ridiculously expensive. I think you'll pay easily $200 for one strap, but I have 3 and they are soft and durable and the colors are perfect. The stitching is impeccable and no, they're not paying me. I just like them. The hardware is brilliant and I've tried like YouTuber NATOs and Watch Gecko and Watch Obsession and a million others. Nothing comes close. At over $200, they are absolutely bananas priced, and I would understand completely that you didn't buy them, but I really like them. And just in general, a well-made NATO, so not those plasticky ones for $10, they just make a world of difference for your wearing experience. Small boxes. If you haven't been a watch collector for a long time and you've never owned a Speedmaster, then you've never had the experience of the briefcase. When you bought a Speedmaster, you got it in this huge box which had a loop and a spring bar tool and a medallion and all sorts of other stuff. If you've ever bought a Blancpain 50 Fathoms, there was a time, and I think you still do, where you get it in a Pelican style briefcase. That thing was the size of carry-on luggage. If you Google some high-end brands like Richard Mille, you're going to get giant luggage containers for your watch. And I understand why brands do this. The whole experience of getting a watch is, and you know, the opening of that beautiful display box and seeing your little ticking bundle of joy at the center of it. I dig it. The problem is, once you have more than a couple of those watches, you have to store those boxes somewhere. And you have to keep them only because you're thinking of resale value. So where are you going to put them? They're just such a space hog. I've seriously considered renting storage space just to get the boxes out of the house. That's why I love when a brand has a modestly sized box. I don't need the thing to be big. They can make it out of oak or beech or some other sustainable wood, but they need to make it small. So you, like me, should learn to love small boxes. I like Tutone. There, I said it. The option that a lot of people call the booby price. I like it. I have watches in all sorts of price ranges, and a pale Nordic individual like me doesn't really have the skin tone that meshes well with full gold. Rose gold works sometimes, but only when it isn't too much. A Yachtmaster or a Daytona on an Oyster Flex on my wrist looks much better than a full gold bracelet simply because it's just too much. Where a lot of people are not big fans of Tutone, for me it gives me a little bit of color without going overboard. Now, some implementations are better than others, but something like a two-tone root beer GMT is quite simply a thing of beauty. And yes, two-tone is a bit cheaper. Well, typically a lot cheaper than full gold. But I think it strikes a perfect balance between eye-catching and restrained that I just really like. I don't currently own a watch with the spring drive, but man, do I like a spring drive. I don't pay a lot of attention to finishing of movements usually, but I'm a nerd and there's something about the spring drive technology that is this hybrid of mechanical and quartz that I find fascinating. I appreciate how engineers somewhere found a way to combine new and old in a real and useful way that gives you incredible accuracy and a movement that is just technically incredibly accomplished. 5 Hertz movements are amazing. Quartz, if you don't know, in general ticks. You get a second hand moving once from second to second to second to second, 60 clicks over a 60-second period. That's fine. Most watches today that are mechanical are somewhere between 3 and 4 Hertz. That means that they vibrate at between 21,600 and 28,800 vibrations per hour. What this gives you is the signature sweep of the seconds hands around the dial. The reason that 3 and 4 Hertz is that sweet spot is largely because of reliability and accuracy. It's a little bit easier to regulate movements to decent accuracy tolerances, and there's just less wear and tear because there are fewer movements in total per hour, day, week, month, year, decade. But a 5 Hertz movement is so unbelievably smooth, especially if the seconds hand isn't relegated to a subdial. 36,000 vibrations per hour is just on another level. I'm the kind of guy that has a high refresh rate monitor, so 240 Hertz. If you've ever played a game at high refresh rates, you know how smooth it is. That's the feeling you get when you see a 5 Hertz movement. Zenith is a brand that does this a lot. Grand Seiko does it as well. If you've never seen one, you need to check out a 5 Hertz movement. It's just so smooth. Would I like to own an eternal calendar chiming world timer grand complication from Patek? Yeah, I suppose I would. Will it ever happen? Likely not. Do I like complications? Yes, I do. And my favorite complication? The moon phase. For me, personally, very few complications have a functional value. I barely, if ever, use the chronograph function on my watch. I travel a bit, but keeping time between where I am and where I came from is usually not the hardest math in the world for me to figure out. I also use my phone as my calendar, and the only real reasons I set the date on my watch is because I want it to be correct. I'm largely going to check my phone when checking what day or date it is. The moon phase is useless. I'm not putting out to sea at low tide or whatever. The reason I love a well-made moon phase is because I think it's one of the aesthetically most pleasing complications. A chronograph can easily make the dial very cluttered and busy, and you always run the risk of having a date complication thrown in at some ungodly position on the dial. A perpetual calendar is cool, but apart from the IWC Eternal Calendar, you often end up with pushes everywhere, and it's also quite hard to make a clean, aesthetically pleasing dial in a manageably sized case. The Zenith Annual Calendar is so close, and I like it, but there's just so much going on. But something like a Raymond Weil Milsim moon phase or a Glashütte Panematic Luna or a JLC Reverso moon phase. There you get a really cool complication that is technically one of the harder ones to do, and it adds visual interest to the dial without cluttering it up. In a close second place would be date pointers instead of date windows, like on an Oris pointed date, and also a solution like the one implemented on a Nomus Ahoy. These are aesthetically superior solutions to how you show dates that I really appreciate. We all know, after all, how a regular date window can really ruin a dial. No, most lugs are supposed to be long. Do you know why? Because that is what aesthetically works with the watch. Nomos gets a heck of a lot of flack for having extremely long lugs, and they do. They make their watches wear badly on a lot of wrists because you get the dreaded overhang. But for me, Nomos has understood how their design language works. Short, stubby lugs would not work on those cases. The lugs are part of what makes their watches feel slim and sleek and modern. So I love them. I'll take a little bit of overhang in exchange for a case design that is almost perfect. I like the Helium Escape valve on the Omega Seamaster 300M. If you've watched some of my videos, you know that I talk a lot about the watch market and how watchmakers often tend to converge on the safe vanilla space. Safe and vanilla is a monochrome Black Bay 41. Safe is a blue dial Datejust. Safe and vanilla is boring. But they do it for a reason, because safe is versatile and popular. Safe is long-lasting in terms of aesthetic. You are at some point going to get tired of that pizza dial on your Studio Underdog. Safe sells. The thing though that I appreciate with the escape valve on this Seamaster 300M is what it does to the watch. That valve takes what is fundamentally Omega's flagship, mainstream, safe diver and gives it enough of a twist that it stands out and has a function that if I were a diver, theoretically, it would be practical. A black dial Seamaster 300M is versatile to a large degree, to the same extent as a Submariner, but the escape valve just adds that little something without going overboard that the Submariner just doesn't have. It's probably one of the 3 key reasons why I feel the Seamaster 300M is superior to the Submariner in my eyes. So I embrace the Helium Escape valve. I have watches in a lot of price ranges. I don't have John Mayer or chic levels of money, but I can afford expensive pieces with a bit of effort and saving. The price range I appreciate most though is around $1,000 to $4,000, and that's because I'm a relatively rational individual. I fall for branding just like the next guy. I'm influenced by good marketing for sure, but value for money is a thing for me. And right now, 1,000 to 4,000K is a spot where you get a lot for your money. I've mentioned this a million times, but quality is really high in this space and the marketing premium isn't as pronounced. So you objectively get a lot of watch for your money. It's also such an incredibly competitive space where the brands seem to be pushing each other. And I think it means that I sometimes feel that there's more innovation and creativity in the space than there is above the space. High-end brands seem to just think that marketing and raising prices is the key to success, where this space is constantly trying to offer more value. It's a good time to be in watches in this space. I'd also say that below $1,000, there are a lot of good watches that aren't junk anymore. There are sometimes more compromises to be had, but value there is also often great. I prefer watch rolls over watch cases and watch winders. Why? Because they take up less space. I can tell you that renting a safety deposit box at a bank is not cheap, and they charge by the size of the box. Watch cases take up way too much space, where a watch roll will protect your watch well in the smallest space possible. It is my first choice for storage and for travel. Finally, I like you guys. Yeah, I know I'm a little bit sappy and sentimental, but I do truly enjoy interacting with you guys in the comments. This is generally a very positive space where knowledge and opinions are exchanged, and I really value your support. Every now and again, there's a negative Nelly that calls me something derogatory or just doesn't bring the best version of themselves to the conversation. But it's a rare occurrence, and if being a meanie makes them feel better about themselves, then that's the way it is. But for the massive, huge majority of you guys, I just wanted to say thanks for all the support. It means a ton. That was it for this time. Leave a comment, tell me what you like, and as always, like, subscribe. Cheers.